What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Facts Not Included's Mandalorian discussion, review, whatever you want to call it. Listen, I know a lot of you are upset at me for not coming out with reviews for episodes number 5, 6, and 7, and now with episode 8 finally here. Some of you are saying, what's the point? Why even cover 5, 6, and 7? I think it's I owe it to you all to at least talk about those episodes. And full disclosure here, guys, I had surgery and in the last couple of weeks, and I was getting ready for it. I was recovering and all that stuff, and I wasn't able to sit down. It was on my back, and so I just wanted to let you guys know that I should have been a little bit more transparent in regards to why there wasn't episodes coming out. We were supposed to do an Irishman interview, a discussion and all that stuff, but don't worry, there is a Star Wars Rise of Skywalker discussion coming out Monday, just 2 days away. But today we're going to be talking about episodes 5, 6, and 7. I'm gonna go through that really quick. It's been a few weeks since I've seen those episodes, let's be honest. And then after that we will talk about episode 8. So just a quick little thing, if you want to listen to episode 8 right away, we'll have a timestamp here right now. So if you want to go straight to chapter 8, just go to 16 minutes and 50 seconds. So let's talk about episode 5. Episode 5 was entitled The Gunslinger. So the Mandalorian defeats a pursuing bounty hunter in a dogfight. He lands his deranged ship at a nearby repair dock on the amazing planet that we all know and love, Tatooine. Now, I had a problem with this episode. It wasn't my favorite episode of the season. If anything, it was my least favorite episode so far in the whole series of The Mandalorian. And sadly, again, it is directed by the amazing showrunner, the amazing brain that is Dave Filoni. But again, it felt too cartoony. I didn't like the acting in this episode. I did not agree with the decisions made by the story group or whatever you want to say in this story. And I think it has entirely to do with Dave Filoni. Again, Dave comes from cartoons. Dave comes from animation. Obviously, nothing wrong with that. We have tremendous Star Wars coming from Dave Filoni in the world of animation. But in this episode, it felt super filler, meaning that it just felt like an episode that in a 20-something episode season, yeah, you could have an episode like this, but in an 8-episode story, 8-episode movie in a sense, you don't necessarily need a story like this. But again, I have yet to see 8, and when I talk about 8, I will then maybe change my mind. Maybe that individual at the end of the episode had something to do with it, but that does not make up for the weak episode that was this episode. Episode 5 is pretty weak. That character, I forget the guy's name, that the bounty hunter, that he's trying to make a name for himself and ultimately turns on Mando, is kind of a poor actor. He's worse than Hayden Christensen in the prequels, I think. He doesn't come off as an actor. He seems like he's acting. Let's be honest. It doesn't seem like he really belongs there. I don't mind seeing. Oh my God, what is the actress's name? We all know her. I'm gonna look this up. Mandalorian: The Gunslinger cast. Let's see who she is, and I don't know why I can't remember her name. Amy Sedaris, of course. We all know Amy Sedaris. What do you call it? She's fantastic, right? So, I love her from The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I don't really know her from anything else, I'm just gonna be honest. Or do I? And I'm just blanking. Alpha House I saw. Anyway, she's been in a million things. You know who she is when you hear her voice and you see her in things. But anyway, my point is, Amy Sedaris, I didn't have a problem. I saw people online complaining that you wasted her or put her in this comical position, and it's not something that needed to be comical. You should have put someone else there. I don't know, but all I do know is that I think she did a fantastic job, and it worked for me. Again, the other dude that played this like bounty hunter dude, whatever you want to call him, fell short for me, and it hurt the episode. It made it seem like it wasn't necessary, this episode, and also the story that Dave wrote or whatever, just it didn't work out. But what was cool, seeing that they were on Tatooine, that was really cool. Again, I'm not entirely sure to the point of this episode. Who knows? But that is episode number 5. Episode number 6 is a fascinating episode for me because it is directed by my second favorite director in this whole Mandalorian series, and of course it's the amazing Rick Famuyiwa. I'm definitely butchering his name, but if you guys know who this guy is, I mean, I've talked about him before in the Mandalorian talk, but of course he's the amazing director behind the movie Dope from 2015. If you guys haven't seen that, you could definitely see his style in this episode of The Mandalorian, as you saw him in the previous episode. I think it was Chapter 2, The Child, where we introduced more into the child. So anyway, that is episode number 6. Let's talk about episode number 6 because we have interesting characters here. Somebody was telling us that the devil was the character. The devil from, was it Walmart or Target or something? That's in this episode. Someone made that joke. Mike actually made that joke. I think I can't remember the context. And of course you've got a Twi'lek woman here, Zion, and then we have a Devorian strong man named Berg, a droid pilot Q90, and a sharpshooter named Mayfield, and that is played by the amazing comedian. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. This amazing comedian over here, Bill Burr. Let's get this straight. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't a big Bill Burr fan a couple years back. I saw his new Netflix special that dropped this year on Netflix, and I was just blown away by him. I started watching his older stuff, and I started realizing he's actually tremendous. He's actually a fantastic comedian. And then the fact that he's in The Mandalorian playing a serious character with comedic chops, it works. I want to see more serious and or I don't know what this character really was. I think he was clearly there for comedic effect, but it played serious and it worked tremendously well. I want to see more of that with Bill Burr. But again, this is an episode for me that again could have been seen as filler for some people, but for me, it really wasn't. It was more getting understanding of what the Mandalorian fights for. Who is he fighting for? What does he stand for? And I think this is a discussion that I'm going to be talking about in the Rise of Skywalker discussion that we're going to come. That's coming up Monday, and it's the idea of identity. That's what all the saga is all about, and I think that's what all of Star Wars is about. Where do you belong? Who do you belong to? Where did you come from? Where are you going? That is exactly what Star Wars is all about. It's about identity. And this episode more or less gives us that idea again. And I think that's something they're continuing to play on with the idea of, are we going to ever see his face? Are we going to find out his name? His past haunts him kind of in this episode. You know, these are people that some of these people he's worked with in the past. And clearly they don't come back at the end of the episode. What is the overriding emotion that's played on here? And I think it's identity. Who are these people? Is he willing to fight with them, defend them, kill them, whatever it may be? Who is the Mandalorian? Answers are given in this episode. It's a fun episode. It's entirely like 80% or 90% in a prison, and so you're dealing with the idea of I guess you're dealing with the idea of I'm blanking on this. Why am I blanking on this? I guess it'll come back to me at some point. But you're dealing with interesting tones here in this episode. But at the end of the day, it's all about the Mandalorian and who he is and what's his identity, right? And so the episode The Prisoner is a great episode for the Mandalorian to set up exactly what episode 7 is all going to be about. Now let's get into episode 7 right here. It's called The Reckoning. Again, throughout episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and including number 6, we get little hints as to Baby Yoda. Who is this baby? I don't like calling him Baby Yoda because that's not who he is. Let's be honest. He's probably not even Yoda's child. I'm gonna go with a limb that he's not Baby Yoda. He's Baby Goda or something like that. Like he's related to Yoda, I think, but he's not the child or offspring of Master Yoda. I think what he is maybe Yoda's nephew, grandson, whatever it may be. Definitely not Yoda's kid, because it kind of goes against the whole idea of the Jedi Code, right? So angry at Anakin was he, right, about finding love, and so maybe did Yoda go against his own teachings at some point? Who the freak knows? But again, that's why I don't think it's Yoda's kid. But anyway, we're constantly reminded. This kid has powers. This kid's indestructible. At some point, he's a fucking Yoda, right? He's a Yoda species, and so we're constantly reminded about this. No one in the universe knows what the Force powers are. No one knows what any of this is, but they all seem to fall into the same idea that this is important stuff, though. This is important stuff. So the idea of that comes into fruition in this episode when we find another Force power done by Baby Yoda, the child. Force chokes. He force chokes the shit out of our good friend Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano. It is a funny scene. It's a freaking hilarious scene. But anyway, the whole point of this episode is to go in to Karga comes back and proposes to the Mandalorian that we need to kill the client. We need to kill Mr. Bounty Hunting is a complicated profession. We need to kill him. And so how do we do that? We're going to use the child as bait to entice him, into giving in. And so on this description, it says, in return, Karga will square things between the guild for the Mandalorian, which is exactly what Mando wants. Mando doesn't want to be a scapegoat for the guild. So at some point, Mando senses a trap, recruits Cara Dune and Quill to assist him. Quill's our good man. I have spoken. And Quill brings a rebuilt and programmed IG-11. Now, here is where we begin to see the more of Mando's hatred for droids, and I think it all stems back to the Clone Wars. It all stems back to when he saw his parents possibly being murdered by droids, by robots. And so you understand the hatred for a specific thing if it kills your family, kills your parents, and it's understandable. But he's yet to let that go. And every single droid he's ever met in this whole series, he has a problem dealing with them. And we saw that in the previous episode number 6, the prisoner, with the droid being their pilot. He was like, "No, I'm not about this shit. I'm not about that. No, I'm not doing that." And so again, reprogram IG-11. Remember, IG-11's whole purpose was to kill the child. Now, Quill, he says, "Hey, listen, I programmed the kid. He's not. I mean the IG-11. I'm not. He's not going to kill the kid." And Mando's like, "No, I can't trust that." So he has no choice. So they meet Karga and his associates, but are attacked by Minox. Minox are very interesting little creatures. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call them little creatures. They're kind of, kind of disgusting. Kind of pretty big. But Minox they were seen in, I think, Empire Strikes Back. Right? I think. Or they were talked about. I don't remember. But anyway, attacked by some Minox, and so Karga's injured, but the child uses the Force to heal the wound. Of course, we are. This is the second time seeing this, but the first time seeing it done, and then of course we see it in spoilers. We see it in The Rise of Skywalker. I'm not going to get into details just in case you haven't seen the movie, but in return, Karga decides, "Hey, listen, man. I was going to kill you guys and take the kid, but I've decided that I'm not going to do that. So he confesses his original plan to take the child to the client and kill the Mandalorian. But Karga pretends that Dune has captured the Mandalorian. This is how they're going to go upon all this. While Quill returns the child to the ship. During the meeting, Moff Gideon's troops open fire on the building and kill the client and his entourage, trapping the Mandalorian, Karga, and Dune inside. Gideon arrives demanding the child. Now, if you guys don't know who Gideon is, Gideon was introduced in this episode, and apparently we see him in episode 8. But again, I haven't seen episode 8 yet, but it's going to be right after when I talk about this episode. You're going to go right into that review with some movie magic, some editing magic. But anyway, Moff Gideon comes in, tries to kick some ass, kills the client, of course, and he's here to demand the child. But the sad thing is that the episode ends with Quill dying. Nick Nolte's character, Quilly, I forgot how you pronounce it actually, dies, and they take the child away from him. So two very bad things happened at the end of episode 7. I Have Spoken has died, and the child is now in the hands of Gideon's scout troopers. So where does that lead us in episode 8? We're going to talk about that right now after this commercial break. We're so excited that you're enjoying this episode. Make sure you head over to factsnotincluded.com/forums to discuss the latest episodes from The Mandalorian. And anything that's on your mind, there's forum discussions for movies, TV shows, books, whatever it is that you want to talk about. We could talk about it on factsnotincluded.com. Make sure you're checking us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Get your latest news from us here at Facts Not Included. Now back to the show. So now we're going to be talking about episode 8, or as they call it, chapter 8. And the name of the episode for this particular season finale is entitled The Redemption. Redemption, not The Redemption, Redemption. It's directed by Taika Waititi, his first directorial debut on The Mandalorian for this series. Of course, you know him as the director of Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok, and a bunch of other amazing, interesting films that he's created. So the story of this episode comes from Jon Favreau. Most of the episodes were written by Jon this season, a couple by Dave Filoni, a couple by, there's one by, I think, Christopher Yost, and Rick from Famuyiwa. And so, but most of the season has been created by Jon Favreau. So, round of applause, Jon, for making probably the greatest season of sci-fi in a long time, or fantasy, whatever you're going to call stars. Anyway, I was going to read you the description on Wikipedia to give you an idea of what happened in this episode, and then we're going to talk about it, of course. So IG-11 rescues the child from the scout troopers. Now, this scene, particularly for me, is probably the highlight of this episode, though it is in the very beginning of this episode. These are two scout troopers that are enjoying their time, I guess, with each other. It's just a great overall comedic scene. They're curious about why the child's so important. They keep hitting him. I don't know, that's so cruel. They keep hitting him. They're enjoying. It's just a very fun comedic scene. It's very Taika. It's very Taika Waititi. It's things that you saw in Thor. It's things that you saw in Jojo Rabbit and many other movies that he's made. It's just his style of just two characters engulfed in the scene, living their life as ordinary individuals. Like, you don't see this side from a lot of characters in the world of Star Wars, and Taika has brought that in to this universe. Like, hey, they're just people too, they just enjoy, they're just curious. Why did our commander send us here? Oh, well, because, hey, stop complaining about a commander, Not that happened in the scene. I'm just saying, like, little things like that, just real life scenarios. This is what happens in this scene right here. So IG-11 comes and remember, his new program is to kill anyone that tries to mess with his baby. He's a new nurse droid now, and his program is to protect the kid. So he does that. He does just that. He comes in brings the kid in by taking it from those 2 scout troopers and brings the kid into the town. So Gideon announces that he knows the identities of Karga, Dune, and the Mandalorian. So Karga, and then I forgot what he talks about Karga, but Dune he talks about she being a Republican shock trooper, and is well aware of what that powerful weapon that that Moff Gideon is holding. It is something she knows all too familiar, being from the planet of Alderaan, of course, the planet of Princess Leia. And obviously, the destroyed planet during during episode 4, that of course was destroyed by the Death Star. And so now we know where she's from. Now we know her kind of stake in the game. She doesn't come from anywhere anymore, or at least she did, and it's no longer in existence. And so that gives us a lot of insight as to who Cara Dune is and what maybe she stands for, maybe what she fights for. We don't find out too much about I forget his first name, Karga, but we know that our good man Moff Gideon knows who he is, and so there's a little history, I guess, with the two of them there as well. But also we get the name of the Mandalorian, where he's what happened to his parents. We'll see a flashback briefly, but we get his name. We get his name for the first time, and his name is, of course, Din Djarin. So this is something we knew a couple of weeks ago in the event of, I think it was an event for, I think Pedro Pascal was doing some sort of event. It might have been for the Mandalorian. And he announced the name Din Djarin, and a lot of people were shocked because they didn't know whether or not he was telling the truth with that name. He did accidentally leak the name. But we all knew this going forward. But what we don't know is we now get a name for the event that his parents were killed. The Night of 1,000 Tears. 19 BBY. 19 years before the Battle of Yavin, which means, if you guys know Star Wars, that is the event of the Death Star 1 explosion. That is the Battle of Yavin, around there. And so 19 years before that was the Battle of 1,000 Tears, or the Death of 1,000 Tears. The Night of 1,000 Tears, sorry. Its first mentioned is in excuse me, which is in the this episode. It's an eventful part of the Siege of Mandalore, in which gunships outfitted with heavy repeating blasters attacked fields occupied by Mandalorian recruits. So it was during the Siege of Mandalore, which is, of course, canon. We don't know too much about it, and hopefully we get more about it in the future. And of course, there is, maybe that's what we discuss in Clone Wars Season 7, which is coming out in February. But anyway, it gives us more insight again into who Mando is, or as now we know him as Djarin. So, where does this leave us now? Let's go back to that description of the episode. They face certain death unless they agree to sundown by sundown to assist Mr. Gideon. IG-11 arrives and breaks the standoff, and the Mandalorian group fights their way out. This is an epic fight battle scene. Not only is Taika good at comedy, he is excellent at action. So the team returns indoors for safety. The child uses the Force to reflect an attacking Stormtrooper's flamethrower. Now this is where we see the kid's true power. I think this is the first time every single individual in the room saw him use a power. I don't recall. I mean, I guess the Force heal in the previous episode, maybe, but everyone got to see his real might in this. So the Mandalorian sends the others through a sewer gate with the child to help find help from the Mandalorian Enclave, while IG-11 removes his helmet to administer Bacta treatment to his head injury. So now, this is where we get to see Mando for the first time. And of course, it's Pedro Pascal. Now, What's really interesting about all of this is he kept stating that he cannot show his face. It is just the way. It is impossible for him to show his face. But the caveat, I guess, the little loophole here is that he can't show it to anyone living. A living person, a living being. And since IG-11 is not a living being, I guess, he could show his face to him. And this is what allows him to show his face. If not, he was going to die. And Mando was completely... Let me just keep calling him Mando. He was completely content with dying at that moment. But IG-11 said, no, man. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out. He had like a portable bath tank, basically. It's like a spray. And he used it on Mando to heal him. And it was the second most poignant moment in this episode. Most poignant moment we're going to see very shortly. So now they join the others. Mandalorian finds the covert group of Mandalorians dead or escaped, we don't know yet. Except the armorer. She's still alive. So she tasks him to take care of the founding child like his own. Take care of the kid. Take care of the child. Discover its origins and return it to its kind. So that's maybe a little bit of a foreshadowing into what Season 2 is going to be about. Maybe we'll get to see a planet of little Yodas. What its origins are, who his parents are. But she mentioned something that's kind of important. I think Antonio and I were very excited about this idea that they keep talking about that she knew who it was, in a sense. She knew what it was, and that his people are not enemies of us, though the Jedi and the Mandalorians have fought before. That he's not an enemy. He's not an enemy. He's the good ones. Then she talks about some other stuff that got Antonio excited. But, so the armorer fashions the Mandalorian his own signet and gives him a jetpack. First time we're seeing the Mando going to be utilizing this jetpack is, of course, in this episode, but that's something, when you think of Mandalorians, you think of jetpacks. So the group is ferried down an underground lava river, but when they are ambushed by stormtroopers, IG-11 self-destructs to eliminate the enemy. This is the most poignant, I think, moment of this whole episode. Sorry, not the whole season. This whole episode is IG-11 sacrificing himself. You have to remember, we saw IG-11 in the first episode. We don't get to see him until like an episode before this one. Again, alive. Again, reprogrammed to for a different reason, different calling, and now all of a sudden is back to help out with the child, and then all of a sudden kills himself in a way that just, it actually had me feeling for a droid. You know, he sacrifices himself for the greater good to make sure that they survive. So anyway, Gideon comes in with a TIE fighter, the Gideon TIE fighter. Obviously, it's not called that, but, you know, it's his. But the Mandalorian uses his jetpack to bring down the craft. He leaves with the child, and Karga and Dune stay behind. They wanted this place to be their new home. I mean, it's a place that is now rid of the bad people, you know? And so they could call this place home now. So Gideon cuts himself out, and this is, okay. I had read that there was some sort of Clone Wars Rebels connection with this episode that connects kind of everything together. And one, I can't say I'm surprised because Dave Filoni, right? Dave Filoni. But I didn't think it was going to be this yet. You know, this item. And so, again, if you're still listening to this and you've been spoiled, you're going to be even spoiled more so by the thing I'm about to say. The dark Saber shows up in The Mandalorian. First time we've ever seen it in live action. It looks gorgeous. The question is, how did Gideon get it? Last time we saw it, Sabine Wren, of course, a member of the Ghost team in Rebels, hands it over to her people, the Mandalorian people. How did Moff Gideon get it? Now, that of course was years and years and years prior to the events of the Mandalorian. This is pre Death Star explosion, Death Star 1 explosion, right? This is pre the events of A New Hope. So what happens to the Darksaber during the original trilogy now that it's showing up here on The Mandalorian? So the question is, how did he get it? What did he do? Sadly, her people are probably gone because of that, right? But now he's in possession of it. And so it seems like he's going to have a pretty big presence in Season 2. And if I'm not going to be mistaken, let's be honest, Mandalorian's going to have it by the end of Season 2. Let's not get that wrong. Like, he's going to kill Gideon. Or maybe even have it before then. He's going to kill Gideon. He's going to get it. And he's going to bring his people together, whoever's left of the Mandalorians, and maybe make a new order. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. And then see where it goes from there. But, oh my God, the Darksaber is in live action, the live action world. So just for people that don't know, the Darksaber in canon is the second oldest lightsaber, laser sword, in Star Wars canon. The second oldest because the first one is the Proto Saber, only mentioned in the Vader comic. But if you know anything about old EU stuff, Proto Saber stuff was kind of a thing. So Vader talks about it in one of the Vader comics, but we have yet to actually see that one. But the Darksaber is something that goes back way, way back into the olden days of the Jedi, the Mandalorian, and the Sith. So the question is, do we get to see the origins of maybe this lightsaber at some point, maybe in live action, or maybe a series down the line? That'd be epic. Knights of the Old Republic stuff that is yet to be canonized. Let's be honest, guys. None of that is canon. So once Disney decides to make some of that stuff canon or make their own version of that canon, I'm going to be very, very excited for that. But anyway, that is the culmination of our series here. Mandalorian Season 1 has recapped just now. We just recapped it. I'm excited for Season 2. This is the greatest Star Wars out there right now. It's the best Star Wars out there right now. I'm just going to say that. Listen, I enjoyed Rise of Skywalker, but it's a whole different animal. It's a movie, you know? This is a TV show. You could do more. You could develop more weekly and all that stuff. I hope there's more episodes in Season 2 than 8. But hey, it worked, so why not just keep it the way it is? Hope you guys enjoyed this episode and look forward to our Rise of Skywalker discussion coming out Monday, December 30th. I hope you guys enjoy this. Peace out.